Hello and welcome to the Revolutionizing Media podcast. In today's episode, we will be discussing technology in the news media industry. I'm here with Jason Ubay, managing editor at Hawaii Public Radio, HPR. So thank you for having me here today, Jason.
Hi.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in the industry?
Sure. I'm the managing editor here at Hawaii Public Radio. I've been in our news department since 2019. I've also worked as a producer on our daily news talk show, The Conversation. My job here, I help with the broadcast stories. I manage a group of reporters along with my deputy managing editor, Pixie Clay, and our news director, Bill Dorman. We help bring the content and news that we have every day. And then we also have a digital news editor, Sophia McCullough, who runs a team that puts up our stories online. So we have a wide array of distribution across our terrestrial radio stations across the Hawaiian Islands, HPR1 and HPR2, though technically I only work for HPR1, our news show, and then our news stream. And we also are available online at hawaiipublicradio.org, as well as on podcasting platforms, Spotify and Apple News, and Apple. We're also on Apple News, Instagram, Facebook, and Nextdoor as well. So, and my background, I have been in the local journalism industry since about 2005. I'm a graduate of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I have a bachelor's degree in journalism from that university. I worked for Building Industry Magazine, which is published by Trade Publishing. That was a while ago. That was my first job. And then I also worked at Hawaii Business Magazine and at Pacific Business News. And now I'm here at Hawaii Public Radio.
That's awesome, Jason. So I wanted to just sort of get your perspective on how the availability of different affordable tools, so like smartphones, cameras, and software, how they're empowering everyday people to become news journalists.
Well, I think it's definitely helped the news gathering. So the reporting has always been pretty the same, though. You've always had to be curious, to ask questions. So journalists, anyone can be a journalist, but certainly professionals have a set of standards, a set of ethics that we follow. Plus, one of the big things in the past was the distribution. So as you mentioned with the technology, it is a lot easier to gather your own video without getting, fancy equipment to record audio. I mean, we still use recorders because it is higher quality. We use mics. I mean, we're speaking here in microphones as well. But if it came down to it, you could use your smartphone, and they all come with that equipment, mics, just download an app. Actually, nowadays, you can make a call and record a call. I use that on my iPhone. The latest versions have that, and it just makes it that much easier. But as far as technology, everyone can be a journalist. I want to say, I apologize that I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the George Floyd arrest from a few years ago, that was all captured on tape. And if that didn't happen, I don't think there would have been a racial reckoning, Black Lives Matter movement if we didn't have the video from a journalist who stayed strong. And well, actually from a video from a citizen who decided that she would bear witness and make sure that police brutality was caught on tape. So what you're talking about, the technology, that's the kind of difference that it can make, that we can all become journalists at any time and have it for the record, because as there's a lot of misinformation out there, but sometimes, having that raw footage is very impactful.
Yeah. So one thing that my parents always tell me is, years ago, there was Walter Cronkite on CBS, and everyone would kind of tune in and believe what he was saying. But like you said, now, like with so many people able to do this now, there's a lot more misinformation out there. So going forward, how do you see the news industry combating issues related to misinformation?
Going forward, I think you're seeing some of it now. We've had fact checkers for a while now. I would say probably the past 2 decades, fact checking websites, fact checking journalists, and that's all they do. Like, they'll watch the presidential debate and they'll just run fact checks to make sure whatever the candidate is saying is correct, or they could say that's false. So that's one way. I mean, one of the big things as a society is teaching media literacy as well, and just being trustworthy. So like what I'm proud of here at HPR is that people say we are a trustworthy news source, and I think I'm a steward. We are a station that's been here for about 40 some years, and I'm a steward of the work that people before me have done, and it's my responsibility and Kuleana to continue that stewardship. And I think that's why when we hire people intentionally, we're big on community and uplifting community voices and being part of the community. And I think that's what part of the future that we need to get to, where the news and media industry are trustworthy institutions.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how like people in like traditional journalists, how and news production studios, how have they really been impacted by these more independent journalists who are posting on social media?
Well, I think they could be inspirations or sources to look at, but I think at the end of the day, the difference between being a professional journalist and an independent one is largely a paycheck. It is really rough to get paid well in the journalism industry, especially local media. And yeah, Honolulu, Hawaii is no exception. And I think you have that support to do that. And then the other thing about independent journalism as well. So my job here, I'm the managing editor, and we have a few other editing folks as well. But I feel like it's still we're still small in that department. Like we could use more editors and we could use more reporters. And when you're an independent journalist, you don't have someone to help you shape your story, or even just to question, like, are you sure you're going after the right questions, or this is the right angle? Because, people don't want to admit it, but everyone has their own personal bias and personal opinions. But it's the work of journalism is what's objective. We approach things with curiosity. We approach things, and the work itself is objective. But a person is just if there's no one to tell them, I don't. You probably shouldn't write this, or you shouldn't ask it this way. Then who will? So that what I think is the big difference.
Is there anything that independent news journalists can do to gain sort of more credibility in the news industry?
I think it's really just building your reputation, and you have to be consistent, and you have to show up, and you don't want to be, what I've seen lately as far as trends are videos of people saying no one's reporting on this, and they have in the video of their short video a video of a news story or someone else reporting. I'm like, well, someone else is reporting on this. So that would be where I think independent journalists, if we're really talking the way that I think about it, like someone doing original reporting, someone going down to a small government hearing that no one else is going to, because, quite frankly, there's not enough time, or maybe not enough interest from people. And I mentioned earlier, the local journalism industry has been shrinking for a long time, and that's just across the country. And we don't have people who can just sit around at meetings all day and not come up with something. Like the expectations from people are different. Like we still have a morning show and an afternoon show that needs to have news content. So they need to produce. So we need to make decisions of what will be important, and we can have a story in the short term. And yeah, that might mean someone doesn't get to sit around and sit at a meeting to see if something happens. But sometimes they do. So I think that's one way independent journalists can be trustworthy. And I think being clued in on a niche or an industry or beat, and just being an expert on that.
Do you think social media platforms are the best source for breaking news or time sensitive news?
I would say push notifications and SMS is probably the best because you're at the mercy of the algorithm. Before Twitter, now known as X, was still a real time stream, but I think that's changed. I honestly don't use it as much as I don't consume my news from social media as much as I used to. Instagram as well will delay stories in post based on the algorithm, as well as Facebook. So it's hard to get breaking news when you need it right now. So yeah, SMS, email as well is still a very direct to consumer platform and distribution center. And then, we got a radio station, but even us, we need to think about how our air sounds and our local programming, and the same for the TV station as well. I think they have to work within the business model and what other programming they have on air.
So yeah, that's funny because sometimes when I'm on like TikTok, I'll see that there's people sort of copying the talking head type of news, and you see these independent creators who find a lot of success with their accounts. And I was wondering, do you think that alone creates more opportunities in the news industry? Say if someone's interested in taking a more traditional route, like if they build their reputation, like it would be helpful in the industry if they wanted to get more traditional job.
Like, and that's, for me, that sounds more like commentary, like someone's commenting on the news. And what the local media industry and journalism in general really needs are original reporters, like reporters who do original reporting. So that means going down to the meetings, going to talking to people instead of, I want to riff on the news that's running today. I think you could still pivot, like, because doing so displays some level of news judgment. It's like, oh, this is an unimportant topic that I want to talk about. But if you're only adding your opinion, I'll step back a second with the riffing on a story. So sometimes you get a story and then you're like, oh, there's more to this. I'm an expert, or I know somebody who knows more about that. So you could do a follow-up story. You could say, oh, someone reported that this was happening, but they missed this context. They missed oh, they're building this building over here, but all they said it was just going to get built, but they don't know who the developer is. They don't know, like, this deal went down, like that kind of thing. So if you're going to be a good independent journalist, would be to do a secondary, this is the news that you heard, but this is all the context that you missed. And I have an interview with the person who actually made that deal, or who owned that house before, or whatever, those kind of things. So that's one way I think someone who starts off as an independent journalist can pivot. And like, I think going back to your original point, anyone can be a journalist. Being a professional in anything, it just means that you get paid to do it. And the problem and challenge of being an independent journalist is, how do you get paid? Like, are you starting a GoFundMe? Are you starting some, how are you monetizing your content? And sometimes, actually many times, and what's probably led us to where we're at in our media ecosystem, is that we've chased clicks, we've chased eyeballs at the expense of doing what's right and important. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Sort of the difference between reporting, following a story, providing context, versus just sort of commenting on what's happening, right? Yeah. So my next question for you is, where do you see this going and affecting the industry in the future? Do you think we'll see more independent creators? Will it be easier to sort of monetize and work as an independent reporter? Or do you think traditional studios will still be the sort of the lead?
I think there's room for both. And I think it's just a matter of, it's the attention span that people have. It's hard to even say everyone has 24 hours in a day. Everyone has different circumstances. So we're always competing for attention and what's important for people. And it's hard we have a local blogger who has created a name for himself. His name's Ian Lynn, ILIND.net. And it's been around for like 20 years. And he was an investigative journalist for the Honolulu Star Bulletin for a while. But he has a blog. So that's one of those things, maybe a relic of the aughts. But still, I want to say he keeps it updated. I haven't checked it out in a while. But those are basically an independent creator a long time ago. But I don't think he's getting rich off of this. So a lot of people aren't getting rich off of this. And I think that's the hard, and it's not even about getting rich. It's about, are you making enough to get by? And you could ask journalists who are starting out at even a professional place, are they getting paid well? I think that's one of the key issues, salaries and making journalism a profession that pays, if not luxurious salaries, but something to at least make the cost of living in your area.
One thing that you brought up that I thought was really interesting was sort of from the consumer side. Attention spans are getting shorter. People want their news faster. They're looking for easier ways and quicker ways to consume news. So do you think we'll see a lot more like short form videos or like even shorter articles going into the future?
Oh yeah, I honestly really thought I don't think we're going to hold our phones differently. So short vertical videos is just kind of the way it's going to go. Reading, though, I think a lot of people do read news content. People can consume it faster. Podcast, I know a lot of people like podcasts, though I also know the longer form stuff, it takes a long time. And just longer articles just take longer, and more resources and more time, because you want to be intentional, you want to be diligent about your work, and you want to be correct and factual. So those all take time and resources. And I think the big thing for people with short videos is like, you're kind of whittling it down. But I would say, as an example, here at Hawaii Public Radio, we will start with a story. One of our reporters say, we'll go through the whole process, but they'll have a story on our air that airs during morning edition and it's about 3.5 minutes. And that's still actually pretty short for a story. But that's probably a little out of reach for some people's time span, or like for us, we have a captive audience usually. Like you're listening to us while you're driving your car, or you have it on at home or in the office. So that's kind of where it starts. And then we have a web story that accompanies it, and that's usually built out. But that's kind of like, if people want to know more, we were able to add more information. So that ends up being our longer form story. But then we also make a video out of it sometimes. So that also just takes a lot of time to condense, like, what is the information you want? Because I think even for a lot of people, it's editing. It's a lot of like, what is the main information that you need to get out of this, and out of content creators and being on this side. You want to talk for days. You want to make sure that everyone knows everything that you know about something, but that's just not always the case. So I do think the short vertical videos are in the future, but I think there's a mix for all sorts of lengths of stories out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sort of the difference between how captive your audience is, but also making shorter content. It's easier on the journalists and the reporters, rather than having to put a lot of resources into making something, longer. Yeah. Okay. So this last question is just a little bonus question. I just wanted to say thank you again so much, Jason, for having me here at HPR.
You're welcome.
Today.
Thanks for inviting me over.
So the bonus question is, what role will AI play in the future of the news media industry?
Well, I think it's already having a role in the present. I would say you go to Google search, did not have like, oh, AI is here now. I would say HPR, I don't know if we've actually made our AI Policy Public, but we've been using Otter. Actually, I'll step back because I'm old. So it was even then I would be able to record interviews like, well, we're recording now. It's going straight in your computer. Where I had a digital recorder and I was like the coolest thing. My teachers all had tape still, and you had to transcribe it. You had to type it. And it took, if you did an hour interview, it would take you 3 hours to transcribe it. So nowadays we're able to throw it into Otter, that's or Descript, and it'll transcribe it. I mean, you should certainly check it, but before you publish anything, but it's pretty good. Like, it's close enough. At least you don't have to get all the raw words typed out like you used to. So that's one way. And I think this is where the ethical dilemma for many news publishers is going to be in the future. Like, how much content do you want produced by artificial intelligence? Because technically, I believe places like the AP may use this, and probably some business organizations. You could have an article written by AI based on what's up with the stock market, or what's up with a box, what's up the baseball score. Like, no analysis. You don't have to go there, but you could say a baseball score, the box score, someone's logging that, but AI has been in the past. They've written stories about, hey, this person hit a home run in the fourth inning, and then they went down. Team A was down by this much, and then Team B hit a double with a 3 RBIs. So that sort of thing. Yeah, and then it just gives you the score. But like, that's not something where for a human to write that takes time that they could be doing something else. So those are like very low key stuff. But I feel like, I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has used ChatGPT just to try it out, or maybe to do other things. But that writes stories almost completely, and it's a little scary. It's scary, but it's also an opportunity, because there is always that human feel and that human connection. So I think that's where the vetting needs to come into play, and just being clear about how AI is being used by your news organization. So I think in the future, we're going to see stuff, and we're just adding more things into the disinformation and misinformation stream. And I think there's got to be a level of media literacy education that's got to be taught in schools. And just generally, I think it is a interesting time to be alive, to try to sort what's real and what's not sometimes. But I do think there are signs of AI manipulation, and I think journalists can benefit by using some tools, but it's just like any other tool. Like I mentioned with the recorder, I think those have evolved, and we're just kind of at another stage of evolution on our work tools. And there are ways to use it ethically, that but I would always caution, for me, I will never publish something that was generated by AI, and as far as like a story. But I think it would be good to clear up, like, this was assisted, our research was assisted by AI, because there's just a lot of data to go through that machine learning can do faster than a human. So
cool. Yeah. So it's going to be about, being transparent about how AI is being used, and not completely, having AI write the stories, or because it loses its human touch. Is that?
Yeah, just about that.
Okay. And another thing you mentioned was media literacy. And I think it's also very important. And I think it should be like somewhat of a course taught in school, because I think it's very important for people to be critical of the sources that they see online, and really analyze them and say, who is making this, and what are they trying to make me think? All right. I think that's all, Jason. Did you have any last things to say before we wrap up here?
No, I can plug. We are in the middle of campaign, so I would just like to say that I work for a nonprofit media organization, and there's a few more coming out. I feel that are already in the works. We were here first. Sometimes I like to say that, but Honolulu Civil Beat, Overstory, and the Hawaii Journalism Initiative are just a few that are popping up, and I think it's a good business model that helps us stay commercial free. But we are supported by readers, and I think that's what I enjoy about working here. But please go listen to us. You can find where to listen to us at hawaiipublicradio.org. You could also listen to our live streams there. And yep, we are available on Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, and all over the air. If you still have a car radio, here on Oahu, it's 88.1 for HPR1.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.